What's going on, Los Angeles? What's up, Ramley? Welcome to the Rams Skinny here on the LA Football Network. I'm Ryan Dyrud, joined as always by the man, our Rams beat writer, our LAFB managing editor, Ryan Skinny T. Anderson. The flow is looking fresh. You were at SoFi on Sunday. What's up, brother? How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. The Rams and I share a couple things in common. One of which is we are both 2-3. I am 2-3 in fantasy football. My first year playing fantasy football, and I'm hanging in there. But as Bill Parcells says, we are what our record says we are. So
nice. Hey, not bad for your first year though. I think I'm just gonna get to 2-3. I'm gonna win this week. I had Aaron Jones in my lineup, who is out as we're recording right now. But I still somehow put up like 180 points thanks to some, I had Tyreek Hill, I had DJ Moore. I think I had, a couple guys just went off. So I think I'm just getting back to 2-3. So I think me and you were tied.
Perfect.
So.
Yeah. I have my two quarterbacks that I selected are Anthony Richardson and Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow, as we know, started off the season a little rough with an injury, and now Anthony Richardson has another injury. So
another one, shocking.
I've got some, I've got some management to do, some roster management to do for next week.
I mean, those are two good picks, so you would think you'd be solid, but that's the way fantasy goes, I guess, and in the NFL as well. But Indeed. We're not talking fantasy, we're talking Rams. Before we get into that, really quick, tell you about our friends over at Prize Picks. Head to prizepicks.com or download the app in the App Store or Google Play. Use our promo code RAMS, LAFB. That is RAMS, LAFB on your first deposit. They're going to match that deposit up to $100. You put in $100, they give you a free $100 to play with, 25, free 25, yada, yada, yada. It's great. It's legal here in California. You pick a minimum of 2 players in any game, any sport, up to 6 players in a game sport, and you're basically just playing against their total projections, choosing over-unders. It's a lot of fun. You can win a lot of money. We've been having fun with it. So prizepicks.com or download Prize Picks on the App Store or Google Play. Once again, that promo code is RAMS LAFB, all one word, RAMS LAFB. You can tell them the guys at the LA Football Network sent you. Skinny T, we were excited about this game. It was a great opportunity for the Rams to prove they were one of the top tier teams in the NFC. They looked good in that first half, battled, went into it down 3. I'll talk about kind of a game shift in a minute, but overall, I thought they played good in the first half, and then just the offense got nothing going in the second half. They ended up losing, obviously, this game and fall to 2-3. Before diving into your overarching long-term, I guess, thoughts on this tough loss to the Eagles.
Yeah, I mean, I am concerned about the offense. We were kind of coming into this expecting McVay to kind of rise to prominence, become that top-level play caller that we've expected him to be, that he had been in the past 2017, 18, 2021, just to lighten the league on fire. And, they have struggled to look like that kind of offense. And 14 points in a game like this is never going to be enough. This is one of the best offenses in the league, one of the best teams in the league. You're going to have to put up more points than that to beat a team like the Eagles. If you look back at the previous games that they played, they put up 29 against the Colts, 16 against the Bengals, 23 against the 49ers, and then 30 against the Seahawks. Some good performances there, but this was not that game. This was kind of maybe one of McVay's worst games that he's called. Obviously, you've got a great defense on the other side, but if you look at the roster, offensive line we've talked about several times, they're not bad. They're actually pretty good. Kevin Dotson goes in there for Joe Noteboom, does a great job. You got Cooper Kupp back. You've got Puka Nacua, who's just a new star in the league. Nobody expected it. Fifth round pick. Kyren Williams, who is proving to be a good back, 4.1 yards per carry in this game. We'll talk more about the running game later on for sure.
Hold me back.
And I think one of your keys for this game was that McVay had to call a hell of a game, and he did not. It was rough. And particularly where they struggled was on first and second downs. They were not setting themselves up for success. They were setting themselves up for a lot of third and longs. I don't remember the exact third down conversion rate, but it was not great. So, I think we've said that, we came into the season, they shocked the Seahawks.
They were, not to interrupt you, but they were 6 of 14 on third down.
Yeah.
So under 50%.
Yeah, absolutely. They shocked the Seahawks with a big win, and this team, we kept saying it, is better than everybody expected it to be. And then once you set the level of expectation, you should keep going with that. You shouldn't regress. And it's hard to say this because the Eagles are a great team. They were in the Super Bowl last year, NFC champions last year. Obviously, one of the best rosters in the entire league, and I just didn't feel like the Rams offense particularly brought their A game. On the defensive side, plenty of mistakes, but the defense gave the offense chances to kind of get back into it. Akhello Witherspoon he himself single-handedly saved points, and we've seen it with McVay where the second half is kryptonite. It's like, I don't know what it is. It's tough.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's concerning for me, Skinny, is, and I think this maybe happened a little bit last year. We even saw this happen in the Super Bowl run, but it's like Coach McVay, for as great as he is, for whatever reason, especially this year, it's like he can't stack back-to-back good game plans or good calling games. And maybe that sounds overcritical, but it's like you have a bad calling game and then, okay, he bounces back. It's like, there's McVay. There he is. And then the very next week he reverts back to like the bad calling. And, I was going to bring it up. Only 14 carries, 13 for Kyren, 1 for Ronnie Rivers. And this was a one possession game pretty much the entire game. And I understand the defensive front the Eagles have. I understand how stout they are against the run. You also got to understand how good they are against the pass in terms of pass rush. And, you're putting Stafford back there having to face the Wolves, as we saw later in that game. Obviously, when they knew they had to pass it, then when time was ticking out. But had they committed a little bit more to the run, when, like you said, I mean, averaging 4.1 yards per carry, that's not getting shut down. 13 for 53 yards is not shutting the run down. And so if they committed, you figure if you go at that clip, when, this is all just hypothetical and hearsay, but you continue at that clip, you double that to 26 carries, all of a sudden you ran the ball for 110 yards. And that's a good day at the office in the run game. You're playing physical, you're moving the ball. And so I think that is where in the second half they just went away from it, because I think they ran a lot more in the first half. Obviously, the first drive I was counting, I think it was 6 plays before their first running play, but they were moving the ball at the pass. Cooper Kupp's back. They want to get involved. We'll get to him in a minute because he is still all world, and it just shows how good he is. So we'll talk about him and Puka in a minute. But yeah, I don't want to sound doom and gloom. I think this team still has a lot of potential. But it's tough when you play a team as good as the Eagles, because let's not take anything away from Philly. They are a Super Bowl contending team yet again. But the Rams had opportunities to steal this game. And it wasn't like they left tons of plays out there. I'm not saying that like they made so many mistakes. I mean, no turnovers. They played a clean game. There's a few passes that Stafford missed, that 1-2 over the middle that would have been a touchdown. He had Cooper Kupp twice with a step and just overthrew it a bit. So there were opportunities there that were missed. But I think if you just called a little better game, it could have at least been at the end where it's like a game-winning potential drive instead of, down whatever it was, 2 scores with it out. So, yeah, it's frustrating when, you just think they have an opportunity and weren't able to capitalize. Now, 2 things I'll add to that before tossing back to you. And this is going to sound counteractive to what I just said. But this was also the first game where I felt like you truly noticed a team against the Rams having more talent. I think you really, truly noticed the Eagles have stars at every single level, and the Rams have absolutely some stars in their big name guys, but then they just have a lot of guys busting their butts and working hard. But specifically at edge position, I mean, they couldn't get any pressure on Jalen Hurts. That was the that as good as the defense battled and played hard and kept the Rams in this game, I mean, Hurts had seemingly all day in the pocket every time. I was able to kind of just pick them apart and move methodically. And so you really noticed for the first time, in my opinion, that there was just a lack of talent to kind of get over the hump. Now, with that being said, as I was just saying, they still could have got the W, I think that's the crazy part, is even with that lack of talent, they still could have got it done. And the last point I'll say is the backbreaker for me and what turned the game was giving up that touchdown at the end of the first half. I mean, what was it, 38 seconds the Eagles had or something like that, facing a 3rd and 10 with even less than that, 3rd and 10 with like whatever it was, 24 seconds. I'm probably off by a little bit, but it wasn't much. And then allowing them, after converting that 3rd and 10, to not just get a field goal, but in getting a touchdown. Not only is that a momentum shifter, but it's just a backbreaker when it's seemingly looking like they could just kneel the ball going to the half and they end up putting 7 on you. That to me was the turning point of this game.
Well, and that play in particular is a perfect example of what you were saying about how the talent deficit that the Rams are facing, especially on the defensive side, showed itself in this game. You've got Derion Kendrick, who I love. I think he's a dog. I think he's the competitive heart of this defense. He's got a short memory, so he comes back and he's fighting his heart out on every play. Now, I'm not defending him on this particular play, but he's going up against A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown is a second rounder, but also one of the best wide receivers in the league. I said that coming into this game. Go look at any A.J. Brown game you want, and you just ask yourself, what the heck were the Tennessee Titans thinking moving on from this guy? But you've got Derion Kendrick trying to cover A.J. Brown. That's a mismatch that you're not going to win in that instance. There's just A.J. Brown is just much more talented than Derion Kendrick, as much as I love him and I'll defend him and I'll go to the mat for him. But that's, it's exactly what you said. There's just this big deficit. And this is the first game where it was truly evident. Now you go back to that week 1 game and the week 2 game against Seattle and San Francisco, and you think about when the Rams were being successful. If this game had been a loss, but it seemed like the offense was competing, I'd have a very different feel about this game. Mm-hmm. And in that San Francisco game in particular, for at least one half, it seemed like the offense was going toe to toe with the 49ers on a physicality, toughness level. And we saw it with the Cowboys last night, where the Cowboys tried to match them physically and they just couldn't do it. And the Rams were doing a better job than the Cowboys were doing against the 49ers on both sides of the ball, but specifically on the offense. I'm hammering on this point just because we've seen it work. And we've seen the game plan, and every week is different, and the Eagles are different than the 49ers. But it's even if this was still a loss and there was just a bit more fight and a little bit more kind of that physicality through the running game, that's where it starts. That's where defenses are forced to respect what you're doing in the trenches. That's where games are won and lost, and the running game is a part of that as well. It's we're pushing the ball 3 yards every time. You're gonna have to stop me at some point, and the Rams just came into this game thinking, we don't really need to do that. We got Cooper Kupp, we got Puka Nacua. Let's see them stop that, and they. Mm-hmm. They did a good enough job. I mean, Cooper Kupp had a fantastic day, 118 yards, I think, and a lot of yak. And that was a big question coming into this game, is how are they going to distribute the ball to these two great receivers? And it turns out, they're going to distribute the ball to both of these receivers. So, and they did that successfully, but there was nothing else from this offense that said, be afraid. Like, where's the challenge? Stop this. How about this one? And it becomes very, you want to be multiple in football, and this is very singular looking offense. So
I'm a big I'm a big history buff, Skinny T. I love history. I think it teaches us a lot. And when you look at the history of this season, it's only 5 games in. It's short. And this is the last point I'll make about the running game, then we'll move on and we'll do some positives maybe we can take from this. But when you look at the 3 losses, the Niners, the Bengals, and now the Eagles, all good teams. So, it's tough. They played them all well. In all 3 of those losses, Rams running backs less than 15 total carries. In their 2 wins, Seahawks and Colts, 30 plus carries for running backs. Let's look at the history. I mean, it tells you run the ball 30 times, you're going to have a better shot to win. And it seems so simple. And I say it every week. I'm sure our listeners get sick and tired of it, but maybe they're in agreement with me because look at the history. 30 plus carries, you're 2-0. 15 or less, you're 0-3. And we have a great quarterback. The receiving core is great. It's maybe one of the best in football right now with Cooper Kupp back, and he looked sure the hell the part that he always does. The offensive line, if healthy, I think is formidable. And the defense, as you said, is playing good enough to give them chances to win. They're not ever going to be a dominant defense with this unit, but they've been in every game, and the defense has given them opportunities to win every single game, which is all you could ask from this unit. 30 plus carries, Skinny. That's all they need to do, and they might be undefeated right now.
They gave up 23 points, which is the fewest that any team has given up to the Eagles this season. Fewest points of any team so far. So,
yeah. I mean, the defense is playing impressive without any edge presence whatsoever. They're playing super impressive. I mean, there was a play where Michael Hoyt was running down the sideline with Dallas Goedert. Like, I don't know if that's that had to be just a horrible personnel call on Raheem Morris's part or whatnot. I don't know what's going on there, but it just shows these guys are just battling and keeping you in it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And we'll see. I mean, let's get to positives because I'm not feeling great.
Yeah. Let's go one more negative because I just want to, this is something I noticed in this game. And I don't know if this is coaching, if this is skill set or what, but, Byron Young, I think has played pretty well for being a rookie and basically being, a 3rd round pick forced to be a starter right off the bat. Like that's pretty rare unless you just show out, and he just was forced to kind of be a starter and not really get groomed into it. But when you watch him pass rush, he's very disciplined, which I love. I mean, he's very good at setting the edge, staying home, and maybe that's why he does this. But every rush I watched, there's no innovation or pass rush move. It's just a straight bull rush. And he's just basically trying to body the tackle into the quarterback. And part of that, I think, is keeping the edge. But then part of that is like, you got to have some, whether it's a spin move, swim, whether it's, different stunts that Raheem Morris could call, because it's just the same thing every time. And they obviously did not get any pressure whatsoever on Jalen Hurts. So that was just one thing I noticed. It's like, okay, does he not have that in his arsenal? Are the coaches telling him not to do that? Or is it just an oversight that no one's really noticing?
Well, and it goes back to what we were saying earlier about the talent deficit on the defense is, he's a 3rd round pick, 4th round pick.
Yeah. I think 3rd round.
3rd round pick. And he's athletic as all get out. And what I've noticed about, college guys that are kind of those athletic freaks and they're coming out, they rely on those traits going through college, and they're able to get away with it because they're playing, East Tennessee State or whatever, and they're just able to plow that guy over, that poor left tackle over, or whatever. And then you get to the big leagues, and that just doesn't work every time when you're going up against Lane Johnson or Mulata or whatever. It's just not going to work every time. He's done a good job. He's getting pressure. He's got 20 on the year, according to PFF, and that's fantastic for a rookie. And, but he just doesn't. I just don't think he has all of those tools in his belt right now to work with. And I think he's getting tons of great experience. And come week 17, week 18, let's see where he's at to truly judge him. But he's not Von Miller coming out in the 1st round or anything like that.
Yeah,
where they just have a whole bunch of stuff and they faced great competition and.
Yep.
All that. So I think, he's proving that the gamble that the Rams took on him was the right gamble to take, obviously, because he's a quality starter coming out of the 3rd round.
Yeah.
But I've been, like I said last week when we were talking about the Bronco that went to the 49ers. Forgot his name.
Gregory.
Randy Gregory. Yeah. I was thinking of Rashawn Gary. Randy Gregory. What was I saying about Randy Gregory? Oh, I've been pounding the table. I've been pounding the table for an edge rusher that they would draft somebody as high as they possibly could, or go out and trade for somebody for as long as I can remember, and it would make a huge difference. But that's not happening in 2023. We'll see if we get closer to the trade deadline what happens, but it doesn't seem like that's in the cards.
Doesn't seem like it. Yeah. So yeah, I'm really curious to see his progression and what they'll do, and I think this is where, if they want to get more aggressive defensively, and then, it could have been this game plan, just being like, hey, let's keep everything in front of us. We're only going to rush 4, really. They did do a couple stunts. That was what Van Volken, I always say his name right, Van Volkenberg. Is that right?
Sounds right.
Yeah. When he got home and got the sack, I think the lone sack of the whole game for the Rams, but it was a nice stunt play. So if they do more of that, I think that's where they'll see some success, because just rushing 4 with who they have outside of Aaron Donald up front, you're not going to get home. I mean, they just don't have the talent or the speed or the pass rush moves to win battle in and battle out. So that's something I want to look for, kind of in the progression of Byron Young and what he improves on. So let's talk some positives. Oh, go ahead.
Well, go ahead. Another negative, Jalen Hurts was the Rams' leading rusher, and he had 3 of the brotherly shove, as people are calling it now, and 15 attempts, 72 yards. So really, we're looking at 12 for, let's say, 70. That's just another thing that you're looking at. Byron Young, you're looking at the defensive line, and they're just unable to contain somebody that is dynamic as Jalen Hurts, which you're not going to find a lot, but more and more there are those players in the league. So, let's cross our fingers for 2024.
Last negative, and then I swear we're going to get some positives in here. But it came to me, I wanted to talk about this, and I forgot till right now. And I hate being overly critical of professional athletes, because obviously I could never dream of what they do, but we're here talking, and this is what we want to see improved. There's 3 things that drive me crazy for professionals to do. It drives me crazy in high school for high schoolers to do it, but if you're a professional athlete, you should not be doing this. 3 things. One is when punt returners fair catch or catch the ball inside the 10-yard line. Drives me nuts. You're always supposed to plant your feet on the 10-yard line, and then if it goes over, if it's past you, you let it go. If they down it inside the 5, you just got to tip your cap. That's a great play. But anyway, that didn't happen in this game. So that's one that drives me crazy. Number 2 is in short yardage situations, usually goal-to-go situations, when defenders think they'll have more leverage going airborne, stopping someone, instead of staying on the ground, using all their body weight. Plus, it's just natural inertia, right? You're going to have more leverage staying on the ground, pushing upwards, than just jumping and expecting your body weight to stop someone. So we saw that in that brotherly shove. I can't remember who it was exactly, but someone went airborne and basically just was bounced off like an asteroid hitting a moving star or whatever. And it's like, why are you going airborne here? You got to put your full body weight and plunge up. So that's another thing. And number 3, and this is probably the most infuriating, is at the professional level, not making arm tackles. Like when guys just throw their bodies for the tackle. How many broken tackles did we see in this game? Jalen Hurts extended a first down on a broken tackle. We saw A.J. Brown do it. We saw DeAndre Swift do it. So that's another thing with this team that we saw it in the Super Bowl run, I believe, in the specifically the second game against the Niners that they ended up losing. Ton of missed tackles, and they were able to obviously correct it in the playoffs. This was another game where I was like, man, there's another missed tackle. There's a guy diving at ankles without using their arms, not wrapping guys up. It's a fundamental that you learn as a middle schooler. And so that's another thing that I'm just like, come on, we got to. So don't catch the ball inside the 10-yard line on a punt. Don't go airborne at the goal line, and use those arms and wrap up these guys and bring them to the ground.
Yeah, per PFF, 11 missed tackles for the Rams defense. So
yeah, that's.
I think that's probably the largest, the most they've had all season.
Never. That's way too much. So
yeah.
Anyway, all right. A couple positives before we wrap the show up. Do you want to start? Or do you want me to start?
Go for it. I dropped one early about Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua looking real good together. But I don't know if you want to talk more about that, or you got something else.
Let's dive more into that. That's the low hanging fruit. I mean, Cooper Kupp, back and looking Cooper Kupp like ever. 8 receptions, 118 yards. Looked great. Looked crisp in his route running. Obviously, playing from that slot, a lot of stuff over the middle. Looked completely comfortable catching over the middle. There was no rust or fear. But I think the bigger positive, and I'll toss it to you after saying this, Skinny, is I don't think any of us were concerned that Cooper Kupp wasn't going to look like Cooper Kupp. We've seen him enough to know how good he is. But there was obviously, we talked about it. Would there be a drop off from Puka Nacua? And would all of a sudden this offense look one dimensional in terms of, obviously they've looked one dimensional in terms of just passing the football, but would they look even more one dimensional, only going to one player? And I think we were able to answer that question with no. Puka Nacua is still with 7 receptions for 71 yards and the touchdown, still looked as good as he has all season long. So you get Cooper Kupp back. He looks like Cooper Kupp, like we expected, but Puka Nacua is still extremely involved. He looks great in how he's using this offense. So that's a huge positive, is using these two guys together. And I mean, let's be 5 weeks in, Skinny. Is this the number one receiving core in football with these two guys?
I think they need one more guy. It's getting involved a lot more to be there. But I'd put them definitely toward the top 10. I mean, I think they're definitely in the conversation. Just the two of them. If you're going to put these two guys up against any other two guys out there, I would say that they're in the running for that conversation. Yeah, I mean, just. I think a really good 1-2 punch of, there was one play that they ran that just really impressed me. We were talking, Alfred popped in, did a little drop into our show last week. Alfred, our great USC podcaster, and just a fantastic personality, great guy to be around. He was talking about, they both play in the slot, and there was actually a play where they both ran in the slot where one of them motioned from further out, back around, and it just caused so much traffic and confusion for the defense right there. And defenses have to respect those two guys. So it'll be interesting to see how that kind of grows and develops. And those kind of plays aren't just something that just spring out of nowhere. They take time and practice and chemistry between the two receivers and with the quarterback in general. So it'll take a few weeks before we see those kind of blended, rub kind of consolation of two different positions into one position, and maybe it'll be used as a kind of a distraction for the defense coming in the future. So, there's lots of great things that these two receivers can do. When you have this kind of 1-2 punch, we've seen it with Robert Woods in the past and Cooper Kupp when they were at their kind of peak. I talked about their ability to block. They both have displayed that ability and in the running game, but that was not on display. So that will I'm still excited to see that. So that's another positive. And I'm going to say Tutu Atwell continues to look more and more like a real NFL receiver, not just like a gadget speed guy that they're using in certain ways. He's kind of catching the ball all over the place, and that touchdown was very impressive.
Beautiful.
Yeah, really
beautiful touchdown. And I think he only had 2 catches on the day, but obviously both very important. And I just love seeing him still involved. I mean, he's clearly wide receiver 3 with Kupp back, and no catches for Van Jefferson or Ben Skowronek, which is interesting, but. So I won't add too much more, but it is so great to see Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua. One other positive, I'll go, Skinny, and then you can give maybe a final one as we wrap up. It might on the surface, and fans might say what, and it might not seem like it, but I got to give kudos. I think this offensive line played fairly well considering who they're going up against. I mean, this is one of our key matchups coming into this game this is a ferocious defensive front. And they finished with 4 sacks, but 2 of those came on either the last possession or the second to last possession. I can't remember, from Hassan Reddick. So Hassan Reddick, 2 sacks at the very end of the game, and then Jalen Carter had 2 sprinkled throughout the game. So to only give up 4 sacks total, but really let's just call it 2 because it's in a dire situation. So 2 sacks total against this team. Like we said, they were able to average 4.1 yards per carry. If they would have just freaking done it more, we could have seen more of that. But kept Stafford relatively clean throughout the game. So. And yet that's even with, Coleman Shelton getting injured. glad to hear it's not anything serious. He should be back, but Brian Allen comes in, plays pretty well in his stead. You had Havenstein, Dotson, and Avila all finish in the top 6 in PFF grading for the offense. Again, PFF's not the Bible, but take that for what you want. They're in the top 6 out of the entire offense. So I think overall this unit going up against a very tough foe played pretty admirably. So I think there's just more, I guess, to be excited about with this offensive line than what anyone expected heading into this year.
Yeah, Larry Jackson coming back just ferociously, just playing a hell of a game, left tackle. That's the most important position on the offensive line. My last one is Ernest Young. Great game for Ernest Young here.
Just Jones, backer, you're saying?
Ernest Jones, thank you.
Yeah, they all sound the same. Ernest
Jones. It's funny because he's one of my favorite players, so I shouldn't forget his name for sure. He was everywhere, all over the place, and that's what you want from
15 tackles, I think.
Middle linebacker. He's got some pressures under his belt. Proving, great draft pick. So that's my last positive note on this defense. A leader. Well, and Jordan Fuller had a really nice heads-up play, knocking the ball away in coverage deep down the field. So that was great to see. So these guys are just proving more and more that they are great players and great draft picks and day 2, day 3 kind of guys. So, yeah, I mean, still looking bright. What are we heading into this week? We've got the Cardinals, which is they're proving to be a tough route. So we'll have a full preview on them coming up this week.
Yeah, exactly. So it won't be a gimme game. Obviously, the Rams have a great history against the Cardinals, but won't be a gimme. But tough loss at SoFi, 23-14. Offense shut out yet again in the second half. Got to get that figured out coming out of the half, how they can get that magic from the starts of the game, because they've looked pretty good in every single game to start when they're on script. And then when you get off that script and going into the half, it just doesn't seem to be the same. So we'll see if the offense turns it around. Defense fought their butts off, only giving up 23 points. I thought played very admirably against this defense, or against this offense, excuse me. So I think there's even more improvement from that unit that we can see. So Rams fall to 2-2. Hopefully get back to 500 this week against the Cardinals. But thank you all for hanging out with us on the Rams Skinny. Drop comments below if you want any questions. Hit us up on Twitter at RL Anderson LAFB, at Ryan Dyrud LAFB, or LAFB Network is the main one, or Rams_LAFB. We got them all. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. If you're listening, we certainly appreciate it. It definitely helps us out if you hit that like and you hit that subscribe button so you get all of our Rams content here at the LA Football Network. But for Ryan Skinny T. Anderson, I'm Ryan Dyrud. Thank you all. Have a blessed evening. We'll talk to you later in the week.